trying a little different thing here today. Yep, seems to be working. So, okay. Hello everyone, this is the curl 7.72.0 release presentation. I said I was going to start at 9 UTC, which is in 20 seconds, so I'm just gonna hold off all the other potential viewers, everyone, all two of you who are tuning in. So I did, yeah, so now it's time to start off. So I did the curl 7.72.0 release earlier this morning, well, an hour ago or so, and I just wanted to sort of do my regular, just present some details about this little release. And I'm going to try a different approach today and just go through a few different slides that I put together about the release. So let's dive in and see what there's to say about it. So this is curl 7.72.0. I do these release images every time because I think it's fun, and I went with a pool tile design this time. So I am Daniel, of course. You know me. I've been working on curl since the beginning. I started it. I've been doing it for 22 years. I work for Wolf SSL. If you need curl help, you contact us and we'll sort it out for you. Today I wanted to go through a little bit about some numbers in the release. Just how many are we, what have we done since the last time, and so on. Yes, and go ahead, do chat with me in the chat. You don't see that in the stream, but I can actually I'll try to monitor the chat while doing this. So if you have any questions, comments, complaints, feedback, take it in the chat here at Twitch, and we'll see. Yeah, right. There's a security vulnerability or advisory posted this time. I'm going to go through that. Some features are added. They're really subtle and most of you won't care about them, but I'll go through them anyway. I'll highlight a few of my favorite bug fixes this time. I think I have 11 mentioned, and just a very brief comment about the future, because I don't know anything about the future, but I'll get back to that anyway. Right, so participation in this release, how many are we pulling that thug there? We ended up with 52 different contributors who have contributed to this particular release from, 49 days since the previous release. Here's 52 people contributed, 29 new, which I think that's more than half. We're now up to 2,239 in total in the contributors list. I think it's an amazing number. I think it's a sign that we're at least doing some things right in the project, that people can contribute, and we're listening in and we're adapting to feedback. Most of these contributors are not authors, they're bug reporters. So that's why we have 30 authors. They are authors who have written code or a patch or something, a commit in Git. So 30 people have their names in Git since the previous release, and out of them 14 were new, so 14 first-time committers, which I think is also awesome. We're up to 819 committers so far. So all in all, very good numbers in participation and contributions, and this is well, it's not maybe not a record amount, but it's in that good sort of trend. A lot of people are helping out, and I appreciate it. So what about time? Yeah, we spent 49 days since the previous release, which is 7 weeks, and we normally do 8 weeks, but we had a little panic last time, so we did a patch release, so we trimmed off a week from this release cycle. So we had 49 days to do all this. We're of course trying to get back to the 8-week cycle, so the next release cycle should hopefully, cross fingers, be 8 weeks. And we are now at 8,000 days since we started the project in March 1998. Quite a lot of time. So I wanted to start out with security-wise in this release, because it might be a highlight for someone. Probably very few, because this is a really low severity issue. And if you read it, and you really should, if you're using libcurl, because this is a libcurl only problem, not a curl tool. So if you're using libcurl, and if you happen to also use the connect only option with the multi interface, the multi API, then you might possibly be affected by this. It's a very, I would say, rare coincidence, or very specific circumstances that will have to, be happening for this to trigger any badness. But it could happen, and that's why we released this security advisory. So if you're in this this section of users, you should read up on the details and upgrade or take precautions. You'll like it. And of course, I think in particular, I think this is the kind of CVE that highlights the fact that counting CVEs as some kind of measurement of how good or bad a project is really not a good way, because we count all the security problems as a CVE, right? As a vulnerability potential, even if high or low risk, or high risk, low risk, or whatever. Anyway, switching over to something more fun than in this project, new features. And new features in curl will really count that as, well, we bumped the minor number, right? If we add features, that's why we use 7.772.0. So we clear the patch number and we bump the minor number. So we're at 72, and we do that because we add features or change behaviors for something. So, and this time we've added, and this is a fun word because I have no idea how they pronounce it. How do you pronounce it? I don't know. Z standard, is that the one? Z compression. Z standard is it's a compression. It's a HTTP compression algorithm. I think Facebook is the primarily standard. Sorry, Facebook is the primary organization behind it, and Z standard is sort of an alternative to Brotli, I guess. So if you want, and it's made, well, it has some different properties than Brotli and gzip, of course, and you should read up on it if you're considering it. And it's getting more common. It's not used by browsers yet, as far as I know. And curl-wise, when you build curl with Z standard support, it'll just add that to the different compression algorithms that it understands, and that it will automatically decompress on receival when you ask for it, right? So if you add it with the curl tool, you use the -- compressed option, and it'll include that as a possible compression algorithm. And the same thing with the libcurl option then, of course. Even more subtle change, or I shouldn't say even more, because Z standard is not that subtle, but this change is a very subtle one, because this is a new return code for the push callback in libcurl. So bear with me. When we use HTTP 2 and HTTP 3 as well, actually, but we don't support that push yet with HTTP 3. But even when you're using HTTP 2, the server can send a server push, basically sending, oh, here's contents you want, as if you would have done this request, basically on the server. Second guess is the client, and here is content for you. And when that push comes to the client in libcurl, you get a callback call, so that your code can decide if you want this or not. Do you want this new stream or not? And when you get that callback, you can now return a new return code. Previously, you could say no, deny, I don't want that new stream. Go on with the normal stream as you would have. And then this new return code holds everything and fails the complete transfer. Even sort of, it fails the mother streams, so to speak, as well as the new. it's been requested. It's a very subtle thing, but it's a new one. And finally, another very subtle thing is that we've added the curl info effective method option for the curl function, curl easy get info, which basically returns, I shouldn't say basically, it it returns the HTTP method used in the most recent request that curl did. Which is why do you want that? Well, you want that only in the case when you're asking curl to do a transfer, you're allowing it to follow redirects, and you're doing perhaps a post. And because in that case, curl might actually change method depending on which HTTP response code the server returns. So it might change to a get and do that. And so to allow your application to avoid understanding 301s, 302s, 303s, and what curl will do with those, you can now get this information instead from curl instead. I did a get as my most recent request, or I did a post. There's actually, I forgot to mention it here on this slide, but there's also a new, the curl tool has the -w option, or --write out, which can export a lot of information about previous transfers and connections. And this also has the new effective method, so you can actually get it from the command line as well. These are the only new things in this release. I don't think anything of this will, cause any major revolutions anywhere, but they're, iteratively small things that improve curl. And of course, I mentioned we did a lot of bug fixes, and we always do a lot of bug fixes, and people keep asking, how can we do so many bug fixes when we're that old? Shouldn't we have fixed them all by now? But no, we're still, first of all, we keep adding a lot of features, so we keep adding bug fixes because of that, and we're counting everything we fix as bug fixes, right? So even if we improve the documentation, which we do quite a lot, those are also counted as bug fixes. So we have 100 bug fixes so in this release in 49 days, so roughly 2 per day. But many of them are very small and subtle. One of my favorites, I have sort of some of my favorites. I'll just go through them. If you want to read the full list, you go to the changelog on the curl site, and you can follow the links there, and you can read up on all of them. Most of them, of course, are very small and tiny, and most of them don't affect many people. But I appreciate this fact that someone actually tried to build curl on Windows XP with a CMake build. Had a problem with it, fixed it, so now it builds fine for Windows XP again. I don't know why. I have no insights at all. I just thought it was fun that people are actually still, maintaining and keeping those old things alive, and apparently are even using them. We did a little fix for the -J option. That's the option that makes the curl tool recognize the content disposition header in a HTTP response when that header contains a file name, which is download sites and stuff uses that. So the site would tell you, instead of latest.zip, it would tell you the actual file name. And curl it still has a little feature that prevents it from overriding an existing file using the same name, because since you don't know the name beforehand, the server will tell you the name. Your command line might then accidentally overwrite the file that you already have locally without you knowing it when you invoke it, because the server decides the file name. And that check was really bad. So we fixed that, or improved it at least. I think nobody who's using -J should expect that to not have any type of security concerns, because if you're using a malicious server who knows that you're doing this, maybe they can trick the user in, returning a really fun file name for you that you really wouldn't use. It would call it .bashrc, or call it .x in it, or something else that you would expect to be something else, and then you could trick the user into something. But still, it shouldn't. We're trying hard to not overwrite existing files at least, and now we're trying a little bit harder. I fixed another problem, which is a regression. We've tried to improve FTP over SSL, called FTPS, not to be confused with SFTP. So FTPS, it does TLS for the, well, both connections actually, and we messed it up in the previous release. So we shouldn't do shutdown, we should do close on the secondary connection, which was, I didn't provide a pull request, but I reviewed the code and I was wrong, and now I think we fixed it. Yeah, so that was some bugs, and into the HTTP2 realm. HTTP2 is fun. It's a fun protocol. We celebrated 5 years this spring. We keep fixing problems with our implementation. Okay. So 3 HTTP2 bugs this time around. First, I fixed the trailer handling, and I fixed it sort of double fix, because the bug report was actually on the bug report I received here was actually trailer HTTP2 trailers doesn't work, and it was actually on an older version of curl that I then subsequently fixed trailer handling, but that fix was wrong as well. So when I tried it, I could reproduce it, although it had changed, so it was still broken, just broken differently. So yes, I think I fixed it properly this time. Who knows? I might have done something other. There's always room for more mess ups, right? So I think I fixed it. Trailers then being basically headers arriving after the body. It's rarely used in HTTP land. It's rarely used in HTTP2 land as well, but there are users of it, and we've tried to support it, and we should support it, and now we support it better. So also another silly thing that I don't really can explain why we didn't do before. So if we do HTTP2 has this fun thing where the server can tell the client, don't try to create any new streams on this connection. Just make everything complete that you're already doing, and then start another one for subsequent streams. And that's the go away message from the server. It says go away, and then you can just basically, you shouldn't create new streams on that connection. You should do that on a new connection instead. Basically, it want to close down the connection in a graceful way. And we've supported that, of course, since a good time, but starting now, we will actually properly mark that connection for close, so that when we when we deal with the last stream on that connection, we will close it accordingly, or sooner than we would otherwise. Just sort of a sensible thing. And also, I think it'll improve our connection reuse logic a little bit. So yes, the go away is really a way for graceful closing down connections, and is also for load balancing and stuff, so that we don't keep one connection alive forever. So it can exercise, tell the clients to move on to a different connection, which could then be a different front-end server or whatever. Related to that go away thing, we also have this, or rather, another regression actually. Or semi-regression. I fixed a problem when you want to create a new stream over HTTP2, and you find a connection that we can reuse. You use that connection and you send a stream, hello, I want this resource, and the server says no, go away. On the first request, we didn't do that, we didn't know about it before, but now this is sort of, we want to send a request, but we're told we can't use this connection anymore. Then curl would create a new connection and try on that one, and in that case, if we would create a new connection and get a go away on that as well, you know, basically the server being I don't know, not nice, but basically saying go away on every new connection attempt. I made a little retry count that made curl only try that a few times, 5 actually. But of course, I did. I don't know why, because I thought I reproduced it, and I'm pretty sure I did, but somehow I messed it up, and the retry count was basically done wrongly, so it was zeroed every time I did a new connection. So it basically never got to 5, so it ended up in a potential non-stop loop trying new connects. Um, and then some people are now then questioning why curl would do that retry at all. Wouldn't it just fail and let the application do that retry? Maybe. I think it's a little bit hard to decide sometimes where to draw the line. What how much effort should curl put into trying to do something before it fails? Because in this case, it seems like it could, but in this case, it could still error out anyway, right? If it tries a few times and the curl and the server just says no every time, 5 times, then it'll return a failure back to the application. So then the application has to do something anyway. And in this particular case, then if it has failed 5 times, it is pretty much a no from the server. Don't come here now. Okay, those were the 3 HTTP2 problems. I also got another bug fix, possibly called an improvement or enhancement. Um, when we do connect only connections, I mentioned that in the security section, connect only is an option. It's a really weird option for libcurl because it says do only the connect phase, don't do the actual protocol transfer thing. So it'll only set up the connection. It actually sets it up and pretty much allows the application to extract the socket and do whatever private things they want to do with that connection without letting curl do the actual transfer. And now we're closing unused such connections better when we remove handles from the multi-interface. A bit complicated. I won't get into the specifics, but it should help us not keep unused connect-only connections alive as long as before. I want to go also highlight this little fact because we get some bug reports. I got several bug reports this cycle on curl failing to build with ngTCP2, and that's why I wanted to bring this up. So this is HTTP3 land. HTTP3 support in curl is marked experimental, and it is experimental for several reasons, right? Because, well, primarily the spec isn't shipped yet, so it's not done. We're on draft 29 so far. There's a 30 in progress, so there will be more specs before it's finalized. And also, but perhaps primarily, the libraries we're using for HTTP3 that handle all the binary parts, and we're using 2 different ones, and this is one of them, the ngTCP2. Well, one of the backends, ngTCP2 and actually ngHTTP3. This is not a released library either. They're also in a very early state, maybe alpha, beta, I don't know what they call it. They don't have releases, they don't have release numbers, basically. We're building from their current Git master branch. So whatever we build with ngTCP2, we build the latest curl Git master with the latest ngTCP2, and that's what we're trying to make work, right? So if you get a release version of curl, and then you get a master branch of ngTCP2 a few weeks, months later, chances are they're not gonna be compatible with each other and might not build and might not work. And that is what people have started to realize, and we get bug reports. Oh, I built 7.71 curl with the latest ngTCP2 and I get this build error. Yes, because so really, if you want to go down the HTTP3 route, you go with the latest master branch, latest code in the master branches of these all components, cross your fingers, and then it should work for a while, and then you should update again. that's what we're doing here. Of course, we will at some point stabilize that, and once they start doing actual version releases, we can, switch to a more stable procedure and figure out which versions to really use for this. And then similarly, I fixed the problem when using Quiche. Quiche is the other HTTP3 backend for curl. I had a wrong handling for this connect, so if you would try HTTP3 on, for example, localhost without running anything, you would crash curl, which was bad, and now I fixed it. But go ahead. I appreciate that more people are trying out HTTP3 with curl, and there's a bunch of test servers to try out. You can actually use curl against, Google, Facebook, Instagram, Cloudflare servers, and a lot of fun things. So you can actually go today and try out a lot of HTTP3 things. And if you want to go there, if you experience stuff, feel free to help out. I have a wiki page for HTTP3 details still missing in curl. Some known things, and there are probably more. But I think it's time to start fixing those missing parts as well, so that we can have a fine HTTP3 implementation by the time the standard ships. I fixed another little tiny thing in curl. Was it last release? I don't remember. Basically, what I fixed was that curl didn't properly remember the previous the method it used. You set transfer options in an easy handle when you use the libcurl API. Basically, you create a handle for the transfer. That's the and then you set a lot of options on that handle, and then you ask the transfer to be performed. That's how it works. And you can then set different options that basically implies which HTTP method to use. And I had some mistakes in there, so if curl would follow a redirect like a 301 and 302 and change method, it would update that wrongly. So if you would reuse the same handle again without changing any options, it would use the wrong HTTP method, not the one it started out with the previous time, as it is documented to do and it should do. And when anyway, that's a long story to explain that I modified somewhat how the code for the curl opt nobody option, and it then turned out that a lot of users sort of thought it worked in a way that it doesn't. It wasn't documented to work that way, and it never was intended to work that way, but I still felt that it hurt several users who have sort of expected it to work this way. So I now made it work this way, and I documented basically what is the opposite of curl opt nobody. So when you set a head, basically when you ask curl to use a head request, and then you ask it to not do it anymore, what's the opposite of that? And according to a lot of users, that is switching to a get. In my world, there's really no opposite to any HTTP method. They're not binary options, right? There are a lot of different methods, so there's no opposite here. But still, I had to do this, at least under certain conditions, and it's all documented. So I think I went back to a more similar behavior to before, and hopefully applications will have less surprises this time. So, and the last bug fix I wanted to mention. This is a fun little option I introduced a while ago. When I introduced the curl URL parser API, you can ask curl to parse a URL for you, and then it'll return. When you do that, when you parse a URL with curl, you create a URL parser handle, and basically use that handle to set parts of the URL or extract parts of the URL, and that handle is called curl u. And then we have an option to curl so instead of sending a string-based URL when you want to get something, you could pass such a pre-parsed handle to curl to use that as a URL instead of that string. Basically, because you already parsed it, there's some benefit to do that. But of course, that seems we don't do that very often. We didn't test it good enough. So if you try to follow redirects, I call it location here, location colon, because that's HTTP header. So if I try to follow redirects by setting the URL that way, it didn't really work. it works now. Okay, those were my sort of highlight bug fixes. None of them very important. None of them hurt many users, I think, but still. And then we had 87 other bug fixes. A lot of documentations, a lot of test cases fixed, a lot of CIs fixed. So overall, an iterative round, I would say, release round. Going forward, the next release is likely to become 7.73.0, and I'm saying that because I know that I think we have 7 different pull requests already lined up, wanting to get merged, and they're adding features or changing things in ways that requires us to bump the minor number. So I'm pretty sure, unless we messed up here and we need to do a patch release, which I really, really hope we haven't. So I'm crossing my fingers for 73. And just to clarify on our release procedure here, we did a release today. So we do 8 weeks until next release. So if nothing is bad in the sorts of, if we don't get any major bug reports and stuff within the next few days, and nobody's pushing the alarm buttons, we're going to open the feature window again on Monday and say, hi, open the floodgates, we can merge features. And then we have roughly 4 weeks, well, strictly speaking, it's 3.5 weeks of allowing merge of features into the master branch, and that will do, assuming that of course they're reviewed and fine and so on. And then we close the feature window, and then we have 4 weeks of no features, only fixing bugs, and then we do the next release. And then I will do another release stream presentation like this and mention a lot of subtle features and bugs, and we start over again. So this is sort of my plan for the next 8 weeks. I have some fun things to merge as well, so there will be some possibly slightly larger changes in the next release cycle. We'll see if I manage to land them and so on. It also depends a little bit on, how much time and energy I have for all the things. And not to mention, if you have anything you want to have fixed, helped out with, I just want to emphasize that we do commercial curl support at Wolf SSL. So whatever, if you're unable to do this for your company or for whoever, come to us and ask us for help, and we will do it for you. Of course, this is what I do for a living. I'm sure that nobody else can do it better. And I just want to emphasize that, of course, I won't ever merge things into the official curl. That wouldn't be there anyway. So, but if you want to have help to get your features and your bug reports fixed better, faster, whatever, get in touch and we'll get it there. And that is basically what I wanted to say today. I think I've managed fine. This is still within basically half an hour. Yeah. So if you have any questions, ask in the Twitch chat. If you have any issues, file them on GitHub. If you have any fun pull requests, file them on GitHub as well, and we will get going. And if you're having some time over, join in and review some pull requests for us, or try out some triaging on the bugs or whatever. Join us on the IRC channel on Freenode, chat with us, email the mailing lists, hang around, and let's get started on the next curl release. See you later. Bye.